Thank you, and good morning to the first HART Board meeting of 2016. If everyone could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. As is our custom, first board meeting of the year is the election of officers. I turn it on over to our board attorney, Mr. Hart. Mr. Smith, excuse me. You are Mr. Hart in some ways, I guess.
With an E, I assume. Okay, just as a reminder to the board, both the officers' election process and the board committee structure have been changed for 2016. A summary was provided in the material you received. Was circulated in your agenda package, and I think you've seen it previously because you voted on it as a board at a prior meeting. What we will do is we'll first do the election of the officers to the board, and then there are appointments to the committee and external board were made by the chair as described in your package. The officers to be elected are the chair, the vice chair, and the secretary. That, of course, is done at the first meeting in January, which is today. The term is for 1 year. Board member may serve in consecutive terms in various capacities, but no board member may serve more than 3 consecutive terms in one capacity. Just reminding you what the rules are, because a nominee who does not qualify is not, in fact, a valid nomination. I don't think we have anybody who served more than 2 years at this point, so that's not going to be an issue this year. The duties of the various officers remain the same. Again, the summaries are at page 4 in your materials, and the restructuring of the committee is as well. Let me make sure we're clear on the nominating process, because this is a new process for this board. The elections will be held pursuant to the Robert's Rules of Order. As you probably know, since I spent my Sunday reviewing it, there are some options that Roberts provides, but I think for this board, the path is fairly clear. We've eliminated the nominating committee. There will be nominations from the floor for the various officers. You have also adopted a new policy that needs to be taken into account, and that policy is that there will be 1 elected county rep, 1 elected municipality rep, and 1 non-elected rep who serves in the officer's capacity. Therefore, we will do the various positions in order, because in the event you elect a certain nominee for the first position, persons similarly situated in status become ineligible for the other 2 positions. And I say that because I read the rule to not be a minimum, because that's not what it says. It says there will be a county rep, a municipal rep, and a non-elected rep. Okay, essentially, the way Robert's Rules of Order require that we do this is, in lieu of motions in a board of this size, what I will simply do is indicate the position that is open for nominations. Nominations can come from the floor, although technically it's not required that the chair, and I'm serving as chair for this particular aspect, recognize you, but for some sense of order and decorum, it'd be helpful if we can do this in a series by being recognized. Again, as I said, given our limitations, we are going to start with the position of the chair, and no seconds, by the way, are required for a nomination, and no members may nominate more persons in the spaces to fill. So the chair, for example, is 1 space. You may not nominate more than 1 person. So you may not nominate a person ineligible, no more than 1 person. Other than that, it just has to be a board member, and it meets our requirements. Any questions on how this is going to unfold? Also, the last aspect is the vote. There are a couple of different ways we can do this. There are options in Robert's Rules of Order. You may have a ballot. Assume we have 2 or 3 candidates for the chair. You can have a ballot in which each of you cast your vote. It's then tabulated by the secretary for the board and we have to wait, because it depends on who gets elected. Somebody might be ineligible for the next position. Alternatively, we can do a voice vote, or we can do a show of hands. The results of the nominations sometimes will dictate the most efficient process. If there's two nominees, you may want to do a show of hands. That is an issue that is open because it's not addressed or decided by Robert's Rules of Order. And if there are some strong sentiments in that regard, we should probably have that discussion before we move forward with the nominations. Is there any concern with, well, let me just hear what people want to say. Anybody have a comment on the ballot process or the voting process? Do it by ballot, by show of hands, or by voice vote? If there's no strong preference, I would probably recommend we simply do it by ballot. That might be the most palatable for all concerned. So unless there's any objections, when we have the nominations and they're closed, we'll have, do we have paper we can pass out for ballots? You could use the back of my Gray Robinson cards if you want. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You raised your hand? No. Oh, sorry. Just waving.
I mean, I, in the past, we've always done voice vote, and
Okay.
it's been effective, and it's worked out well. And I think unless everybody has an objection, I think we should just do a voice vote.
Okay. Any objections?
And then if there's close or something, then you could do raise your hands.
Right. Or polling. Any further comment on that? Okay, then that's how we'll proceed. Yes, ma'am.
The only thing I would like to say is, when I read through this, it's the if needed. I mean, I would have written that out on 3 or 4 of mine. I didn't know that was an option. So, next year, this should be noted that when you send this out, sort of like, if you need somebody, I'm happy to step in, but there's people that want to serve. And so there's several of those where my name is listed where it would be like an if needed, but I didn't put that on my application.
Okay. All right, we're going to start with the office of the chair. Do I hear any nominations for the chair? Mr. Beckner.
Nominate Councilman Suarez.
Okay, Councilman Suarez has been nominated for the position of the chair. Do I hear any additional nominations? Yes, sir, Mr.
Move nomination be closed on the said name.
Okay, there's a motion to close. Does anybody have any other nominations? Hearing no nominations, is there a second to close the nominations? Second. Okay, any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, you have your new chair. His third year. This will be obviously his last in that position. We now open the floor for nominations for the vice chair. Do I hear any nominations? Yes, sir, Mr. Jacob.
Yes, I would like to nominate Ms. Jarosh for vice chair.
Okay, Ms. Jarosh has been nominated for vice chair. Do I hear any additional nominations for the position of vice chair? Yes, sir.
Same motion I had before. Move nomination be closed on the said name.
Any further nominations? Any second to that motion? Second. Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. We have our vice chair. I now open the floor for nominations. Yes, sir. Oh, you're quick. I now open the floor for nominations for secretary. Mr. Miller.
I nominate Commissioner Sandy Merman.
Okay, for the position of secretary, Commissioner Merman has been nominated. Are there any additional nominations for the position of officer?
Move to close nominations.
Okay, there's a motion to close. Is there a second? Okay, any further discussion? All in favor of closing nominations indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We don't need to worry about the ballot issue, do we? I think you now have your officers for the upcoming year 2016, and I turn this back over to the chair, Councilman Suarez.
Yeah, don't get that confused.
I
Thank
know,
you so
I've
much
done that
for reelecting our slate of officers again. That's a lot easier vote than most of the votes that I take over in council. So thanks for being so smooth and easy with this. Mr. Smith, I just want to ask you one procedural question in terms of the external board appointment. Should we do those votes now, or can we do those later in the agenda?
You can do them either time. It would be good to do them today.
Okay, terrific. Why don't we go ahead and move to the external board appointments? There are 2 external boards that we will vote on as a board. One is the Tampa Historic Streetcar Incorporated Board. We have We have 3 current members, Mr. Jacob, Mr. Creno, and Mr. Vance. Expressed interest in it are Mr. Jacob, Mr. Vance, and Ms. Shanahan. Unless there is any objection, the folks that are expressed interest. I'm a little bit confused on this, Lena. We have 2 separate sets here that say expressed interest. Is it just a continuation of the rest of those members? Because one is those are the alternates for interest. Okay, terrific. I would ask for a motion to approve the 3 that are going to be appointed. Yes, sir.
I think it's 2 members and an alternate.
Okay, so it's a little bit confusing here. 3 members and 3 alternates. So we have on here who have expressed interest, Mr. Jacob, Mr. Vance, and Ms. Shanahan. If anyone would like to move that slate forward as the folks that would be members of the streetcar board, I would take that now.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. All in favor of those 3 members, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Next, to the alternates. The current alternates are Mr. Roche, Mr. Bowers, and myself. I don't know how I got to be an alternate. I thought I was off this list, but anyway, who have expressed interest are Mr. Bowers, Mr. Jacob, and Ms. Shanahan and Mr. Vance. Since Mr. Jacob, Ms. Shanahan, and Mr. Vance, all 3 are now on there, we have Mr. Bowers is the only one that has expressed interest. We need room for 2 more alternates. We had made a comment, and I will, if we could, I would ask that we have Ms. Jarosh be nominated for that one of the alternate positions now. I have a motion. I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay, and for myself, I know that we had a discussion about this, and maybe we can bring it up now, Mr. Smith, which is I had asked about some of our board members being alternates, our executive members being alternates to some of these committees. I will be gladly put myself as that alternate. There was no ruling in terms of our charter or any other reason that we couldn't do that. Is that correct?
That would be correct. If you're willing to serve as an alternate, there should be a vote to confirm both you and Mr. Bowers as the alternates to that committee,
Well,
unless there's further nominations.
Okay, terrific. I think that we just approved Mr. Bowers and Mr. Roche, if I'm not mistaken, or did I miss
I
that?
thought you just moved to add Ms. Jarosh, so you
Okay.
didn't technically approve Mr. Bowers. I think
All
you
right.
intended to, but I don't think that.
I have a motion to have Mr. Bowers as the alternate to the streetcar board. I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Okay, and then myself as the 3rd alternate. I do any motion for that?
So moved.
Have a motion? Second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay, terrific. Now on to our next board, which is our MPO board. Our current MPO board member is Mr. Bowers. Those that have expressed interest are Mr. Bowers, Mr. Jacob, Mr. Melendez, Ms. Shanahan, and Mr. Vance has put if needed basis. If we could, I think we're going to have a little bit more discussion as to each one of these members, Mr. Smith, in terms of our voting. So if I could, I'm not sure how we should do this, if we should just do it on a straight vote for each one of them as we go forward, or what is your suggestion?
You can do what they call the ayes and the noes, which is done seriatim through the names. And if one of them gets a majority of the ayes, that person is confirmed, or you can do it by ballot. These are the options you have under Robert's Rules of Order, or you could do it by a voice vote or raising of the hands, which is a roll call vote.
Okay, I think we probably should do a roll call vote unless Commissioner Miller is about to say something, but I think that we could do a roll call vote on each one of the names as we go forward. Go ahead, Mr. Miller.
Should we, Mr. Chairman, should we not have a nominations form? I didn't hear that in your
We could.
comments. Even though you say vote on the names here, I think there should be a nomination of those persons. Am I correct?
Your rules do allow the nominations from the floor for these positions.
Okay, I have no problem with that, Commissioner Miller. If we want to go ahead and take nominations on those that have expressed interest, I will entertain a motion now. Commissioner Miller.
I nominate Mr. Wallace, Reverend Wallace Bowers.
Okay, we have a motion to nominate Reverend Bowers. Any other nominations from the floor? All right, seeing none, all in favor of Wallace Bowers as our member to the MPO, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Congratulations, Mr. Bowers, being back on here. Now, we also have a alternate position. let's do the same process. Mr. Jacob, Mr. Roche, Mr. Melendez, and Ms. Shanahan have expressed interest with Mr. Vance as an if-needed basis. I will entertain a motion for an alternate. Commissioner Merman.
I nominate Ms. Shanahan as our alternate to the MPO board.
Okay, any other nominations from the board? I see none. All in favor of Ms. Shanahan as our alternate, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. And I think that is the only two external boards, sir, or is it the Transportation Disadvantage Coordinating Board also an external board? I think it is. All right.
Yes, sir.
Let's go to that now. Our current member is Commissioner White. Those that have expressed interest are Mr. Roche and Commissioner White. If I will entertain any motions from the floor, Commissioner Miller.
I'll nominate Commissioner White.
All right, we have a nomination of Commissioner White. Any other nominations of anyone else? Seeing none, all in favor of Commissioner White, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Also on the alternate, Ms. Shanahan is the current alternate, and those that have expressed interest are Mr. Roche, Mr. Melendez if needed, and Commissioner Merman. I have any nominations from the floor? Commissioner Miller.
I nominate Commissioner Merman.
All right, we have a nomination of Commissioner Miller. Any other nominations from the floor? Oh, okay. Was that Mr. Roche, was that a nomination or?
No.
Okay. All those in favor of Commissioner Merman as the alternate, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. All right, and then on the other HART board committees, I think we will go ahead and do those at another time. I can send out emails for those that have expressed interest to make sure that we have enough folks on there so we can get through our agenda.
Yes, you just need to do it in time for the meetings that are scheduled.
Absolutely, it'll be done by the end of the day today.
Lena, did you have a question?
Lena, please come to the microphone. Thank you.
There are two hard board committees that the board needs to vote membership on. This is Claims and Litigation Committee and HART ADA Committee.
The legislative, I'm sorry, the,
Claims and Litigation is on the first page of your election agenda.
got it.
Subsection 2A,
Oh, the
Claims
ADA
and
committee.
Litigation Committee.
Terrific. All right, let's go
Thank you.
back to our Claims and Litigation Committee. Mr. Carino is on there now. Those that have expressed interest have been Mr. Carino, Mr. Vance if needed, and Commissioner White. I'll take nominations from the floor now.
Nominate Mr. Carino.
I have a nomination of Mr. Carino. Any other nominations from the floor? I see none. All in favor of Mr. Carino, please say aye. Aye. All right, next we have, we need, that board committee, do we need three members, or? That's our committee, not the ADA committee outside.
Claims and Litigation Committee is one member and one alternate.
Okay, terrific. On the alternate, we have Ms. Shanahan has expressed interest. I'm sorry, Ms. Jarosh has expressed interest. Ms. Shanahan is our current alternate. Ms. Commissioner Merman and myself have also expressed interest. I take nominations from the floor now.
Nominate Ms. Shanahan.
Okay, we have a nomination
the
of
alternate.
Ms. Shanahan. Any other nominations from the floor? I see none. All in favor of Ms. Shanahan, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. On the, and that was on the Claims and Litigation Committee. I didn't want to confuse it. On the HART ADA Committee, our current member is Commissioner Merman, and Mr. Vance has expressed interest. If needed, you may be now. I will take nominations from the floor now. Any nominations? Yes, ma'am.
I nominate Councilmember Vance.
All right, any other nominations on the floor? I see none. All in favor of Commissioner, Councilmember Vance, please say aye. Aye. Are any opposed? Thank you. Congratulations, Commissioner Vance. All right, our alternate is Commissioner Bruckner. Those that have expressed interest are Mr. Melendez and Councilmember Vance. We will eliminate Councilmember Vance for obvious reasons. And any nominations from the floor? Mr. Jacob, I apologize. I have Jarosh here and Jacob, and it just gets confusing sometimes. Go ahead, sir.
It's a good start to the year.
Yeah, I know.
Councilman. I'm sorry, I would like to nominate Mr. Melendez, please.
Okay, we have a motion for Mr. Melendez to be the alternate. Any other people from the floor that are nominated? I see none. Please vote on Mr. Melendez. Please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Congratulations. Okay. Let's go back to our regular agenda. Thank you very much. Thank you all for your patience and time on this. I need a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting on December 7th. Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Now it's time for public input. Lena, do we have anyone that currently wants to, okay, we have no one that is listed for a public input at this time. We have three action items, we have action items A through D, I apologize, A through D, from the Major Projects and Legislative Committee, which met on December 21st. Are there any questions or comments about items A through D? I have a motion and a second. All in favor of moving approval, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That was quick and easy. All right, now we're to the chair's report. I wasn't prepared to do anything because I wasn't sure I was going to be the chair again. Thank you very much again for selecting our group as your executive committee. We really appreciate it. I know that myself, this is my last year because I'll be term limited out of the HART chairmanship. So I'm sure it'll be an enjoyable year like it's been the last 2 years. Thank you again for your confidence in my ability. Okay, Ms. Egan, if you could.
And thank you, Mr. Chair, and a Happy New Year. Thank you, everyone, for showing up early on the first working day of the new year. But we're raring to go, so we're glad to have everyone here. In your board packet under tab 4, you have an update on information requests to board members. The one included in the packet is for a shelter replacement at North 22nd and Bay. The shelter was run over by a car, and side note for transit, run over so aggressively the bolts were yanked out of the concrete, so we have to tear the, I know, it was someone took mom's car and is presumably grounded for life. The damage, though, to the pad is so significant, we have to tear the entire pad up. So we have to start from scratch at that location. We are going through the permitting process, and once that goes into construction, we'll send an update out to the board just to keep you posted on the project with that. A few other updates. We are continuing to work with FDOT on the feasibility study for the CSX rail corridor. Tomorrow morning, the FDOT representatives are scheduled at the MPO board meeting, so there will be an update there, and we will be starting the process this spring of drafting a statement of work. The funding is available no earlier than the 1st of July, so our goal is to be able to have the statement of work up and on the road, so we are able to make the award as quickly as possible once the new fiscal year for the state starts. This also marks the first working day of our new contract with Yellow Cab, who are now providing same-day paratransit service to our paratransit patrons. We had some miscommunication over the weekend, so I'd like to give a big kudos, I guess, Greg, is a technical word, to the Department of Ops support that on New Year's Day was on the phone with Yellow Cab and customer service to make sure our customers were getting the service that they expected. So thank you to the whole team for making that happen. And trips are going on as we speak. And Mr. Burns, if you mind coming up, can you give us an update on first mile, last mile, please?
Good morning, Good morning, Mr. Chair. Happy New Year. Al Burns, Director of Procurement, HART. In regard to the first and last mile solution, we received proposals on that. However, due to extenuating circumstances, I recommended to Ms. Egan and to Director Bracken that we cancel the solicitation. As the solicitation is going to be reissued relatively soon, I'd like to refrain from answering too many questions. However, I will let you know that we received proposals, and they were very robust and unique proposals. So I'm really looking forward to reissuing that out no later than the middle of this month. And the issues that we encountered, I have addressed with legal, and we've huddled up, and I think we'll be able to have those rectified.
Thank you, Al. Also, another update. At the November board meeting, we had provided an update on the ferry project to the board, and Director Melendez had recommended we have an update at each subsequent board meeting. So we don't, and I'm looking at Jeff, who's giving me, we don't have much to update, but Mr. Seward, if you don't mind, come up and let us know where we are.
Good morning, Jeff Seward, Chief Financial Officer. As a matter of fact, there is a little bit of news. We have scheduled meetings with FDOT next week concerning the release of the solicitation for the contractor to conduct the NEPA process. We have gone back and forth with the FTA over the last 35 days, and it finally got punted back to FDOT and the Florida Highway, or the Federal Highway Agency, whose funding is actually going to be used for the NEPA process. So we are caught up in a lot of bureaucratic red tape at the federal level, but we being ourselves and the county, have a lot of confidence that we will have an answer to the procurement issues by the end of this month.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for that report. I know after your report last time, there was some concern with the county administration about some information that was in the report that you gave this board. And I just want to make sure, are you working closely with them now to make sure that everybody's on the same page?
Yes.
I mean,
Yes, we are.
I was pretty surprised. I mean, everybody was surprised, number one, that you gave the report without kind of coordinating with them, because they are going to be, even though we get the federal funds, the county has a really big place in coordinating this whole effort, since we have to make that decision. So I just want to make sure that everybody stays on the same page and there's nobody giving reports, information, whatever out there without, everybody working together.
Commissioner, I'll reach directly to Mike today. I know we have worked on this project more specifically with Mike Williams and with Lucia Garces, but I will reach out with Mike today to make sure that we're just on the same letterhead, like literally with two
Perfect.
signatures. Because again, if the staff is working on it hand in glove, but the rest of the arm does not know, that's not what we want to be
That's
doing.
all I ask, is
Yes,
that
ma'am.
we're all working
I'll get with
together.
Mike today.
Thanks.
That's right.
And then just two information items. Today begins our first business year of our new healthcare premiums at HART. We had been previously under an 82-18 split with employee versus employer covering of the healthcare. Obviously, we picked up 82%. This year's a fundamental shift, 73% agency, 27% employee. We have a robust wellness plan. We will keep you posted. Obviously, this is our first month, so we won't know until probably our March board meeting. We won't be able to have information to come back and let you know what that spend is looking like, but we will keep the board posted. And I'm anticipating that we'll see some changes, some positive changes on that. A reminder that when we get back into the eBoard facility, everyone will have an info screen or a tablet available to them, so kiss your board packet goodbye.
Good.
Fewer trees killed, just wanted to highlight that. And then the final item, we will be going to Tallahassee this month. So Caesar will be reaching out to board members to see who is interested in being, I know Commissioner Miller was wrangled into this, who may also be up in Tallahassee at the same time. So sometime this week, look for a phone call from the HART office to see who is available to be up in Tallahassee with us. And this will be our first trip of the year.
What's the dates of the trip?
Around the 20th?
So the transportation committees, they're going to meet either the week of the 12th or the week of the 19th. We're just working with the advocacy group to see when it's going to be the most strategic and beneficial time to go up, not just to meet with legislators, but also if there are other stakeholders that we can interact with. So I am going to have a phone call this afternoon, and once I have that phone call, I will update Ms. Egan.
Perfect.
And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, Ms. Egan?
Yes, Ms. Shanahan.
The, on the yellow cab, are we gonna add that to like the monthly stats? I mean, I think we really do need to track the number of asks, the on-time, whatever were the crunch issues over the weekend. The more that we can be publicly reporting the, metrics of the contract in a real, I just looked at this one, it's not on here, but I'm assuming that in the
Yeah,
future it will be.
it will be.
On the first mile, last mile, I'm not gonna ask any questions due to understanding the sensitivity around procurement issues, but I'm really happy to see that it's gonna get back out on the street and then we expedite that. I think that's a really important statement about transportation both using current market opportunities to efficientize the system and also better use of taxpayer dollars for, sort of some of the bigger projects, so to speak, if there's efficiencies on the other side. And then lastly, I don't know when this happens at this board, but I really do think there's a lot going on in transportation, and we sometimes get down in this like, okay, here's this cycle, this, this slicing, but there's not a landscape view of what's happening, and I don't know where that takes place. I know a lot of you are elected and you have a lot of these conversations at your platforms, but I do think that I continue to believe that this organization should be the platform of leadership for transportation, both policy as well as opportunity and implementation for this region. From a business leader's perspective, I'm involved in a couple groups, and there's a lot of intense interest in terms of what we're doing on what we as a community are doing on transportation. And, I'm going to a dinner tomorrow night with I don't know, there's 8 or 10 business people that are trying to figure out between the partnership and the chamber and the Florida Council 100 and what can we do about this. So you've got a lot of pent-up energy, and sometimes that can be good and sometimes that can be bad. But if they don't see a platform of leadership, then they'll create another one. That's just the way people do it, and it's the way business people do it. And I'm not advocating that, but I'm not saying that that's where they're going to go. But I think sometimes we get caught in the little things that we're not, and I don't know when that takes place. I mean, it's the beginning of a new year. There's an editorial a week in every paper, in every, every nightly news, local news. It's all about transportation. So I guess I put that out there for the chair to figure out what we do about that and how we make sure that we are positioned as a platform of both thoughtful leadership, but also execution, maybe beyond. And I know we do that. I'm not saying that we're not doing that, but I'm not sure we're covering the complete conversation.
And if I could, Ms. Shanahan, you're absolutely right. The toughest thing with transportation for anything that we do is that there's so many disparate players that are part of this. There's so many streams of revenue that go into transportation. There's so many other players that are part of this that it's extremely difficult to figure out what that landscape is. And, when it comes to the business leaders, sometimes they believe we can do certain things that we can't, and then they don't know that there are things that we are doing that we've been doing for quite some time. So you're right, there's that disconnect. And I would suggest, and maybe we can try and do this, and I would ask Ms. Egan to maybe look into it, is doing not a workshop necessarily, but maybe a group setting where we can all get together and have a public hearing or a public group where either the executive board or other members can get with some of the business leaders so that they can understand where we're going. And it makes it a little bit easier for them to see where we're at. Because, let's face it, a lot of people don't watch our TV presentations here. They don't come to our meetings, so we need to make sure that we keep reaching out. We've been trying, and we keep it up. As you know, that Ms. Egan's probably been to more meetings than anybody here. So we want to make sure that we keep that momentum going. And you're right, there's a lot of interest, but it's not necessarily a lot of, there's a lot of light, but not, and maybe sometimes too much heat. So we got to figure out how we can get that light to shine on us as to what we are doing currently.
Has the HART board ever done a letter to the editor sort of describing what the agenda is for the year as a board?
I don't think we've ever done a
an
letter to the
op-ed
editor
or-
specifically for a, we have done letters to the editor on other things, but nothing specific as to the landscape. But that's not a bad idea. And if you want to make a motion that have Ms. Egan write that letter talking about some of the successes we've had in 2015 and what 2016 looks like, I'd be glad to take that motion.
So
up.
moved.
Any second? Second, sir. You have a second and a motion? Any discussion on the motion?
I mean, I'd like to.
Yes, Ms. Green.
First off, I'm going to echo Ms. Shanahan's points. I'd like to, once we're done with this vote, follow up on her comments. But if again, this editorial, if you will, is going to be an editorial about HART, which the framing of your words seem to imply it would be. In other words, we're going to talk about both first mile, last mile, and what we've done, with HART, what we've done with HART Plus and so on. That's great, but I'm not sure that is exactly what Ms. Shanahan is asking for. As a citizen representative of this board, I agree with her entirely that this is the board that should provide the leadership platform. Unfortunately, what I feel like is because we have the city council that obviously has budget, we have the MPO, we have, the county, and I'm not sure I fully understand all of the different players in the regional transportation dynamic here, but I always feel like people, the commissioners or the city council will come in and report something that's going on within transportation. And, you sort of feel like a second citizen here at HART because the bigger decisions are often, or at least it's presented as the bigger decisions are often made either at the county level or at the city level. And we don't have a lot of opportunity to either understand what's happening at the county level, partly because of the sunshine laws. We're not allowed to actually have conversations with folks about that. So I think what I'd like to suggest, and I know I've gone off a little bit here during this vote, but what I'd like to suggest is, in addition to sort of a HART editorial, if you will, I'd like to suggest that maybe we get an update from the city and the county as to how their landscapes are evolving so we can understand how to potentially play a leadership role. 'Cause I very much feel like, these decisions are being made here in the ether and often they're conflicting and, the news or the word that we get from, public sources, so to speak, again, because of the sunshine laws, as citizen representatives, we're not allowed to have conversations directly with the members of, the commission or the members of city council as to what is actually going on that affects us. I'd like some sort of reporting of that so that I can understand as a citizen representative the actual landscape as it's evolving. Because I agree with Ms. Shanahan, the business community has tremendous pent-up energy. It's entirely too late in coming that, we get a regional cohesive transportation plan together, and I'm not sure what I can do about that in the HART board, but like Ms. Shanahan and I think several others, we'd like to do as much as we can.
Okay, and let's continue the discussion. If you're done, Mr. Carino, Commissioner Merman.
Yes, and I think what Ms. Shanahan says is so on point. I think we've said this here at this board for many years. Our connectivity to the other entities in this community is not as good as it should be. And that's why I think I chose and suggested that we have this legislative and strategic planning committee so that they can be more active in having discussions like this robust discussion about what our priorities are, who we need to connect to, do those type of things. I suggest before we write the editorial that we definitely, that committee should have a meeting because I'm not sure we're all on the same page as what our priorities are for an editorial right now. And I think we need to bring that information back to this board so that we understand this year, here's what we're working on. I know we have TDP and I know we have all that, but it's that card you keep in your pocket, that says, the 30-second elevator speech, like, here's what HART's working on this year. And that's my suggestion, is I'm fully supportive of what you do. I think the Strategic Planning Committee and the Legislative Committee could easily come up with some kind of a strategy for this connectivity to the business community, to the county, to the city. I think we thought by including HART in the PLG, but I'm not sure that information all came back here to all the members of the HART board, except for what you read in the paper, and I won't comment on that. And so, anyway, I think, I'm just trying to get us in kind of an organized, strategic mode so that we don't say things we don't want to say or go in directions we don't really want to go in. We all know one of the big constraints with HART is the funding. And I think the Finance Committee should meet immediately and start to figure out where can we get more sources of funding. But we're constrained. We're constrained by the millage and by what the federal government gives us. That's it. It's hard to be a leader when you're dependent on other government agencies to give you your funding. So I think that all needs to be discussed in a very robust way, and let the business community and others really help us in moving in the direction we need to go. So that's my suggestion.
Okay, we've kind of muddied things up a little bit in terms of what the motion was. Ms. Shanahan, I think that you understand.
I think that, I mean, in summary, you know, I think the motion is still, I think making an annual statement of what we feel, what we've done, you know, what are the priorities. I don't think the business community knows about first mile, last mile. I mean, some of these things that are actually trying to use efficient current technologies to then effectively take care of some of the most needy constituents in the service community, but not driving big buses, you know, that last mile. I mean, to me, as a business person, that makes real sense. I don't think people even know that we're thinking that way. But also the establishment of regional priorities, you know. I mean, I agree with Sandy, funding is always going to be an issue. I mean, funding is an issue, but there are public-private partnerships happening out there in this country that are very significant. So if you have an existing platform that executes on all these different channels of funding, I mean, the city and the county all have money, but the people that get it done are at HART, you know. So if we're the platform that gets it done, and, you know, you've got public-private partnerships, both global, you know, U.S. maintained, and we're a booming state, we're a booming general population in this area. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do if you're positioned as a leader in the conversation. And I don't think I don't think HART is positioned as a leader in the conversation in terms of how do we get transportation services across this regional landscape efficientized. And I'm not saying we're going to have all the answer in one, but I think if you set it up that once a year you sort of did this at the beginning of the year, you know, here's what was accomplished in 2015, here was progress made, and here are some of the priorities. It doesn't have to be all inclusive, you know, epistle. So I still think the motion as read stands, and I stand by that, and a draft would be circulated, and we all have to comment on it.
Okay. Well, we have the motion. I think we had a second on that, and please, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed to that? Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Shanahan. Appreciate it. Okay. Are we done, Ms. Egan? Terrific. Oh, I apologize, Mr. Jacob.
I got a few things on my list here. Just some are informational, and some are questions. First, on the yellow cab issue, how are we communicating that out into the community in terms of people being aware of it and being able to use it? I guess is the question.
That is an excellent question. This program is designed for our folks with paratransit, and nutshell, to qualify for paratransit, a patron goes through a certification process. So we have their contact information, we have dialogued, we've engaged with them, and we have a mailing address for every single person because that's where we go pick them up. So nicely for this service, we're able to be very old school and send a letter to everybody's house. So the folks who are able to take advantage of this, we've been able to work with them. And in fact, they, not just the letters, they were reading the press clippings, and the day the solicitation went out on the street, they were calling us saying, hey, is my service available? So as far as targeting the patrons, that's been very easy for us to get to. As far as general outreach, it's been more with our brick and mortar of making sure it's in our press clippings and reaching out, hey, the service is available. It is a pilot program. It is funded by an FDOT grant for $150,000. That could cover at our pricing up to about 7 or 8% of our paratransit trips for the year. So we want to run it as a pilot, see how the model's working, and then based on that success, take it out for a more robust program to say, here's this great thing we've been able to deliver in the county. But long version of the short answer, we're able to send the information to everyone's home on this program.
Additionally, do you have any preliminary numbers or reports on the success of New Year's Eve with the streetcar being free since 7 o'clock, and also to piggyback on that, now that the bridge is open to Harbor Island again on Franklin Street, has that affected the in-towner in any way in terms of ridership since it was open in December?
We will have to get back with you on the information. I don't have any anecdotal information other than Twitter did not say anything bad about service, which is from last Thursday's evening. Yeah, so that's our bellwether. We didn't get lit up, and then we also had Streetcar Live following 2 days later on the Saturday. So once we have that information, I get big compliments to our finance team. They get our ridership numbers turned around within a few days. By way of comparison, When I was in Baltimore, it was a 7-month lag, and Dallas was 6 weeks. So we are cutting edge in a lot of ways, and one of them is being very responsive with data. So ideally, this week we should have some information for the board on that ridership. And we can get that back on what the overlap has been with the in-towner. The Harbor Island detour is off. Well, the road is open. We've been talking to the Tampa Downtown Partnership of Ways to revamp all of our downtown transportation, and those are a little less formed than I think we would have liked them to be, but we will be coming back to look at how to revamp the in-towners, so it's this comprehensive network. It all makes sense, and there's one place to go for the information.
And lastly, if I may, on the Tallahassee trip, certainly, obviously, a lot of us are interested, but a lot of us go up there anyways. You know, I'm going to be going up in January. How can we get information to be prepared as possible when we're going up there for other things, so we can make sure that that's part of our discussion issues when we're meeting with our specific representatives and the delegations we go and visit?
We've got our legislative priorities. We have our Farebox white paper, or Fair Card, I think we're moving to saying Fair Card white paper. And we had done a fiscal year 15 summary of all the stuff which we had done here at HART. We'll add a few months to that. Now that is 3 pieces of paper. They give you talking points. It sounds like what would be more relevant would be a very quick bulleted point list of, you know, Farebox is our #1 project. Here's all the cool stuff we're doing. Here's where we're showing our efficiency, our commitment to being the best possible stewards of our taxpayer resources, making better use of the limited resources we have. And here's where additional support from the state can be most impactful. So our team will work on those bullets in the next few days and get those back out in an email with the other documentation, so it's on your handheld and easy to go scrolling and not have to download.
Terrific. Okay, any other questions of our CEO? Okay. Mr. Smith, your report?
Yes, sir. Just 2 brief items. Number 1, if you have not turned in your CEO evaluation yet, please do so. They were due December 31st. We need to get those completed, so your earliest possible convenience would be appreciated. Secondly, in light of the departure of Michael Stevens, I'm going through a bit of a legal services audit, for lack of a better term. I want to make sure that the channels of communication are as open as they were previously, so that my involvement in critical legal decisions is thoroughly there. And so just as a point of information for you. And that's it.
Thank you. Okay, we have our regular board reports, which are in your packets, as are the reports from the MPO and the major projects and legislative committee meeting minutes, and all our status reports on financial highlights. Next up is our public input regarding general concerns. We have 3 folks that would like to speak. First up is Mr. Spells. Sir, welcome back. Thank you for showcasing our HART logo on your hat and on your shirt, and as I understand, on your backpack. So thank you for being here, as always, and Happy New Year.
Thank you. How's everybody?
You're good.
I take it, Hearts, doing very good. I read the packet. You guys decided you want to send 2 buses up north. I don't know why. When they deserve to go to the scrap heap instead. Okay, now I was, traveling up and down, on some routes. I don't know, for some reason I was on Metro Rapid today and some other days. For some reason, somebody's tearing apart your city, Mr. Suarez. Somebody's tearing apart your city up and down Nebraska Avenue. The streets are, bumpy. So they need to pave it, but however, everything's going good. One day I was in downtown Tampa at the bike shop talking to a good buddy, and I saw that he had a disability because he had a missing limb. So he made me think the idea about. Because I told him I was going hand cycling, and I was like, I wish that there was a way that buses could have especially different designed bike rack that could be able to hold a hand cycle, which is a three-wheel bike, yet let alone still having that same format that has the bike rack with the 2 bikes. And it made me wonder, made me wonder. And there was some other things that made me wonder. I was at home watching a video based on the streamliners, you know, the trains that dominated the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and sometimes the 70s. And, well, they had streamliner cars. Now, I was wondering if it was possible somebody need to come back there and invent the streamliner, which is a very lightweight, stainless steel built vehicle. Possibly, if HART had a stainless steel built type vehicle, maybe it could, you know, be a streamlined bus. Shoot, I mean, streamlined. Yeah, if you're talking streamlined, you could probably bump transit, you know, to get their time, you know, down. Say like taking an hour to get to a place, you'd be there like snap. And possibly it'll, you know, save everybody less time. Bus drivers could get their breaks. Everybody be happy. They could get to work, you know, like on time. And I think if somebody was to bring the streamliner system, the streamline back, possibly if I had a shop, I could probably, you know, take one of these old buses that's in HART's parking lot and take it and revamp it before something was to happen to it. Well, at least I could do it with the new ones, but the old ones, I don't know.
Well, thank you,
But,
Mr. Spells.
you
I
know.
appreciate it. I especially like the fact that you made a comment about the three-wheel bikes or the hand pedaled bikes. That's
Yeah.
an interesting thing, and I definitely the staff will look into it and see if there's any racks like that that are available. I'm
mean-
not sure that there are, but you know, I've never seen one like that. You're
No.
right. The ones that we have now have really room for two
Yeah.
bikes. I think is it two?
Yeah, it's room for
Yeah.
two. It's room for two, but
Maybe it can be repurposed to allow a bigger bike that might be a hand-controlled bike or a hand-pedaled bike. So,
yeah, and it's like if not, maybe you could take the ones off of the buses and have somebody, you know, like just make bend a whole bunch of steel, to remake the brand new ones and put on the number of buses you have.
Well, you never know, Mr. Spells. Necessity is the mother of invention, so maybe we'll get somebody out there that knows about it. But we appreciate your comments, and thank you again for supporting HART always.
Oh, hey, about the job opening.
Well, Mr. Spells, if I can interrupt you for a second, I would suggest meet with the staff to look at the openings that are available so that you can talk about what your qualifications are in terms of any positions that might be available, okay?
Alrighty.
All right.
Good enough. I gotta go use the restroom now.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Spells. All right. Mr. Cloyd, sir, you're next. Happy New Year, sir. Thank you for being here again.
Good morning, board members. Happy New Year to everybody. I know that this is a fast and exciting time in the Tampa Bay region, and I wanted to point out a couple of things if I could. First and foremost, we need to be cognizant of the election year and the safety and security concerns as it applies to individual members of the board as well as the public. I would ask that since Mr. McLean is new to the board, with his vast experience militarily, that he could probably brief you on individual protective measures and how you can see that between now and November as we look at the transportation tax. I had a question. This is from the September TDP. I had a question about the security equipment and the upgrades. It says that HART will upgrade security surveillance at transit centers. Now, I noticed over the last 3 or 4 days that, as visibility would have it, that Allied Barton has made a strong presence in certain parts of the city, and I won't name where. And I'm wondering how the transit centers are going to benefit from this new security service, because I believe, if I remember right, going back maybe September, October, HART had been working vigorously on this. I'd like to get some input on how that's working.
Ms. Egan, do you have any answers?
Well, Mr. Cloyd, you're correct. We have a 3 months, so no longer a new vendor, but our security service is it's Allied Barton, and we've seen a much stronger presence at our transit facility. We've also expanded the hours, which are out there to 20 hours a day. That's when we're open the entire time. And we've received really positive feedback from our staff. And when we go over there, the areas where we previously would have seen folks loitering just adjacent to the property, we don't see them there anymore. Beyond that, I would recommend that you can speak to potentially, I'll volunteer Mr. Al Burns afterwards. So any things which can be addressed in light of, where we're going for procurement of additional security measures, overhauling our camera infrastructure, for instance, he can give you some answers on that.
Sure thing. The only
Thank
other
you.
question I had, I know that HART and everybody's been working with the Hillsborough County School System on getting more students to ride. Want to know how that's going.
Thank you, Ms. Egan, and thank you for that question. This was actually going to be my update and part of the new and old business. As you're probably well aware, changing the culture of transit is going to be important as to expand transit and to change our culture from a car-centric community into a transit-centric community. At the next meeting, we will be bringing back a presentation to this board on the update on that. Myself, members from the school board, as well as staff, have been diligently working over the last year to bring back a proposal that would allow middle school and high school students to ride the HART bus for free to increase the amount of transit usage by our youth. And so at the next board meeting, we'll be having a detailed presentation, and we'll be receiving also an opportunity for this board to receive input on our proposal moving forward. But that is going to be an intricate part, I think, of, again, changing the culture of our community. So thank you for bringing that up.
Sure thing, Commissioner Beckner. Appreciate that. The only other question I had, I know with the Outback Bowl just being in town and all the media coverage, want to make sure I'm on the same page with everybody that every hotel within the streetcar district does have those 3-day passes available, because I know that the numbers that I saw visibly were pretty good. Just want to make sure that the hotels are up to speed on that.
I believe they are. I believe they are.
All right. Thank you for your
Mr.
time.
Cloyd.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
All right, our next member of the public is Mr. David Sinclair. Sir, if you could come up here. Thank you for being here.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I've been riding the HART system for 57 months now. I gave up my vehicle while I was still working. I'm very happy with the system. Yet today I'm here to make a statement. It basically is a complaint, but also a recommendation related to HART Flex. In the last 2 months, my father, who's 91 years old, is now living with me. I'm the caretaker. And 1 week ago, we requested a ride in the proper procedure, and we were denied. Okay. The day that I was supposed to have gotten on the bus, we had to, on the Flex bus, we walked out of the house toward the city bus outside, and I saw 40 yards away, 4 doors away, the HART Flex bus picking up another person. Okay, so apparently that person had called before and they got the privilege. I later called and complained and learned that there's a process by which only 2 patrons can be picked up in a 60-minute period. Okay. But once I called back, and after about 1 day, 24 hours and not getting a call back from a supervisor, I called customer service and mentioned I was coming to the board here. And suddenly I'm getting calls. Okay. So I learned, and I want to recommend basically that in the training of frontline workers, those who take the calls, that there be more of a proactive presence, more training to teach persons how to resolve issues that seem unresolvable by being proactive. That's not a dirty word. Proactive is something positive, and I think that very often those who are maybe entry-level workers are not given that opportunity to be trained in the beauty of being proactive. As an advocate and a retired person now, I know that that's very important. So I come to you, and unfortunately, it was because I said I was coming to you that I was getting calls back. But I'm very happy to be here, and thank you for your work.
Well, thank you, Mr. Sinclair. And it shouldn't take you to say that you're coming to the board for you to get a call back, and I totally agree with that. And I'm going to ask our CEO to investigate what exactly happened with that particular trip. If you don't mind sticking around for just a little bit so they can get the details of it, and she'll come back to us next month
And
on
just
that.
as a positive, when I did get the call back, and the apology was obviously profuse, it was good. I felt good about it, and I felt that it was an audible response.
Well, we appreciate the fact that the apology came, but we want to make sure that, as you said, let's be proactive about providing the service necessary.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. Commissioner Merman.
And thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'll just make us, when those calls are made and somebody turns them down, I mean, again, Sunshine Line, is available as an alternate. And we need to, anybody that calls HART Plus or Sunshine Line should not be turned away if they have a reason, to use those two services. And I think that's why I've been staunchly advocating for 5 years better communication between Sunshine Line and HART Plus so that there is a seamless connection and people are not slipping through the cracks like this man and his father.
Well, and let me just clarify, Commissioner. Mr. Sinclair, you're writing Heart Flex?
I thought he said HART Plus when he
think
called
it's
for the
Flex.
services.
Flex.
Oh.
But there's
I-
clearly still an
Heart Flex.
opportunity to do better. I mean, if we were
Yeah.
on your street and it's a pen and paper scheduling, we had the opportunity to have stopped by your house.
And I would thank Commissioner Merman for having said what you did, because I did work when I was working as a social worker with seniors, and it is very true, the points that you made. There's a need for more coordination and more respect. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, Ms. Shanahan.
Is the fact correct that they only pick up 2 people in 60 minutes?
It is. HeartFlex is the van-based deviation service, so folks can catch it anywhere on the main road. And when you book a trip, for instance, we'll use the Northdale zone as an example. Mr. Sinclair's making the face at me. We have the stops on the main road, so we have the regularly scheduled service. When we are deviating back into the neighborhoods, we deviate up to a 3/4 mile area so we can get closer to somebody's house. We had adopted 2 trips in the 60-minute window, but I believe that we are evaluating that this year to see if we can do more. And again, if we're going to 4 doors down from Mr. Sinclair's house, that shouldn't lock down the hour. I mean, we're probably driving by his house to turn around, so here's an opportunity to do a better job with that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Any other old or new business? Well, Commissioner Beckner, and then to you.
No, just, I pretty much said what I needed to say, but just for the record, we'll be bringing back a presentation for our next board meeting to show the work that we've done over the last year and a half to provide the opportunity for our youth in our community to get more engaged in transit and provide services to them. So I'm looking forward to that, and also we'll be welcoming your input and any ideas and suggestions for this program.
Terrific. Thank you. Mr. Roche.
Yeah, I just, under new business, I wanted to bring up the TBX. I know since our last presentation, I think we had Jacobs and FDOT come before us and give us some status updates. I know a lot has happened in the last few months, and it's very pertinent to what Ms. Shanahan was talking about. Sometimes they don't come back, and they're in the news, and I would like to perhaps get an update if it, in the next month or two, whenever it would be appropriate. I actually see the TBX as a great opportunity for HART. When they gave us the last update, they had mentioned, the potential for some bus rapid transit lines. And to us, I see as an agency that is a zero capital cost for some exclusive guideway, something that we really need to take a look at and perhaps work it in the next TDP or two, whatever. But at the time, I had asked the FDOT spokeswoman who they had in mind to operate the bus rapid transit, and at the time she said they hadn't made any decisions about that. So I would like to be a little bit proactive and take a look at the opportunities that might present us, and perhaps even after we hear the presentation, maybe as a board, offer up a resolution of support of the project.
Okay.
So.
Any other comments or questions? And maybe we could have FDOT come and make a presentation about TBX in the next couple of months. Okay, terrific. All right, are there any other comments or questions from the board members? If not, I think we are adjourned. Thank you very much for being here, and Happy New Year.